Majak, the first Sudanese player drafted to the AFL. International attention soon followed. His life lived in the spotlight. Majak worked behind the scenes to improve. His hard work was rewarded with increased game time. On the field, he grew to become more comfortable as an AFL player, stringing together impressive performances. However, off the field, Majak's mental health suffered.
Evening, the AFL is under fire tonight after North Melbourne star Majak almost died when he plummeted from the Bolte Bridge.
The AFL community is tonight rallying around Kangaroo star Majak who is in hospital after falling from the Bolte Bridge.
Good afternoon, Majak. It's a pleasure to have you here on Something in the Grey. My name's Ali, the host. Obviously, mental health is a big part of your story. I was listening to a podcast the other day with a clinical psychologist, and they were saying how rather than asking people, are you happy? It's not the best indicator or best question to ask someone to gauge their mental well-being. They say that you should strive for good and pray for happiness. And they said a better way to ask for someone about someone's mental well-being is, how are you doing? So Majak, how are you doing?
Look, I'm grateful for everything that I have in my life. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and I think when you ask me that question, how I'm going, to be honest, I'm pretty tired. It's been a big week, yeah. Look, I'm happy with some of the moments that I get to enjoy day to day. Whether it's sitting down having a meal, whether it's having my son, where it's being around my teammates and having a laugh with them. But then there's also times where we all have worries, we all have things that occupy our mind. But in the overall picture, I'm grateful, and I'm generally have joy in my heart. So those things, when I get to enjoy them, spend time with people that mean to me the most. When I get home, that's they're what drives me, and I look forward to seeing those people next time because of just the feeling that I get from them. So yeah, I've got a lot of joy in my heart at the moment. So
that's great to hear. It's interesting that the first thing that you said was grateful, and that you expressed gratitude throughout that answer. Was that something that you've learnt to be more appreciative of since the mental health struggles?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I know the word gratitude and word grateful, but I mean, until I paid attention to what it really meant, and there's 5 ways of moving to a good mental health, and one of them is practicing gratitude. Moving, exercising, or doing something you enjoy, like cooking, listening to music or reading, or a value like giving something to charity, or doing something for the benefit of others. And gratitude really stuck out for me because it's just so easy. I've got a roof over my head, I've got food in the fridge, I can pay my bills. I've got a really good support network around me. Just those things, really. And I think we take that for granted, and we just think those things are always gonna be there. But we have to be grateful for those things around us. And yeah, it's been a journey through my mental health. Because there's some days where I don't want to exercise, but gratitude comes easy because it's just you really don't have to do too much. It's just a shift in your thinking, and you know, wake up in the morning or before you go to bed. So yeah.
It seemed like it was all the little things that you're grateful for, spending time with
Mhm,
Hendrix, spending time with the family.
mhm.
You know, it doesn't seem like it's something overly complicated. It's just spending quality time with the people that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're I look back, been playing for 13 years now, and my mum and dad have always been there for me. My friends have always been there, and it's everyone's a phone call away or a text message. But even this morning, like when we finished training, I was pretty tired, and Hendrix wanted to come see me. So him and his mum came around, and we just went downstairs, grabbed him. He got a baby chino. He got a coffee, and that was
Oh,
pretty cool. Like that was pretty cool. Half an hour, spent a bit of time with him, and that's a I you know I get a lot of enjoyment out of things like that. They don't have to be too big. So yeah.
with those days where you feel like your mental health isn't the best, you
Mhm,
add that layer on of being a parent with Hendrix.
mhm.
How do you deal with the stresses of being a parent, which is huge, and adding on to that difficulties with dealing with a poor mental health day?
Yeah, look, that's even with my mental health, like it's in a great place at the moment. But just have to be mindful that if I don't do the work, if I'm having a tough day, if it's been a really tough month at training, or just life in general, I just keep it really simple, and I just bring it back to why I do what I do, uh, which is it's really simple for me. It's Hendrix,
Mhm.
and when I'm spending time with him, kids can pick up on your energy. He wants to go and play. He's got a lot of energy, runs around, so it tires me out. And I just think, what type of parent do I want to be, or what type of parent um, does my child want me to be proud of? And I think, yeah, you just work through them, and sometimes you just gotta keep it really simple. There's always tomorrow, and one of the biggest things for me, if I've had a really tough few weeks or a really tough day, I just rest up, go to sleep, ring a friend, go for a walk, and just keep it really simple, and just look after myself that day, and just know, it might be sensitive, but might be a little bit more sensitive emotionally, but yeah, you just gotta acknowledge
Mm.
um, how you're feeling, and really look after yourself in those times, and don't make any drastic decisions. That's the biggest thing I've learned. So yeah, yeah.
I was listening to I think an interview that you were doing, and you were saying how during the rehab, the birth of Hendrix, is that correct? Was a big
Yeah,
driving factor for you to be able to continue on that mental well-being and good mental well-being journey. I guess my question is, did you feel that you needed something like this to happen?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said earlier, he's my reason, and
Mm.
my why. And I think when I was going through my rehab, um, and my partner being pregnant with Hendrix, I just I, um, I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to. Didn't want to be a father who was in a wheelchair,
Mm.
and couldn't really run around with their child. Because I think, uh, I'm learning that now. You know, being a parent, it's a journey. That it's a responsibility. You know, they don't get a choice of who their parent is. So at the time, I felt like it's my responsibility to get myself right. But also when Hendrix was born, that you know, I'm ready to go. I didn't have any prior experience, but
you had the best
but
crack.
just give him everything that he deserves, and I think that really helped me a fair bit. And I underestimated, you know, what that would carry on to, and carried me to getting back to playing footy. So, so yeah.
It's amazing what a person can do in our lives. Someone that's special can really drag us when we don't think we can do anything. They can really drag us to a particular point. So it is really amazing what they can do. I think a lot of people know about the Bolton Bridge incident. And, you know, as soon as you had jumped off, you said you regretted it and you went to reach for the rails. It's very harrowing stuff to listen to. My question is, when people speak to you, they bring that up. I'm bringing it up right now. How do you go about reliving? I'm sorry. How do you go about? How do you go about reliving that trauma? Because I listened to something you said earlier, where, you know, the first few months after that incident, you couldn't sleep. That was all you could think about. And it seems like you've gone to a really good point now where you can speak about it. But I guess there's that trauma that you still have to relive every time you talk about your mental health and your journey to get to a good place. How do you feel about that now?
I think it really is, you know, part of me. It's a fabric of my life. You know, it's something that I went through, and you know, people are intrigued, and they want to know why, and they want to know how I'm still around, how I'm still walking, how I've been able to get through it. And I really I felt really uncomfortable answering that question for a long time. But the reality is, you know, if I don't normalize, I mean, I'm not normalizing suicide, but like the mental health and the struggles. When people ask me about the incident, I have to be honest with them and tell them I absolutely regretted that decision. And so for someone that's gone through their own battles, or people who've gone through their own battles, so they know it's a you know, it's a tragic incident, and it's something people shouldn't attempt, because not everyone is as lucky as me. And you know, statistics shows mental health takes way too many lives, and some people aren't lucky. So I need to be, and I am honest with people when they ask me the question about the incident, because apart from the you know, from the injuries that I sustained, there are also people around me who were deeply heartbroken. You know, my parents, my siblings, my teammates. It affects so many people around you. So that's why it's such an important topic to talk about, and normalize the struggle that, you know, everyone has their struggles. And I think the more we talk about it and share it with people that we trust, I think we can make our way in, and make strides in the mental health space. So
I think speaking about it, like you said, tries to reduce the stigma around mental health. And then, you know, not just speaking about it, but actionable things that people can do, like you were saying, picking up the phone and speaking to a loved one, knowing what to do in that situation is so important. You were saying that you felt uncomfortable initially talking about it. Obviously now it seems like you're almost an ambassador for mental health, and, you know, a lot of people associate you with that incident, and you're seen as, you know, rightly so, because you are speaking about it, you're seen as someone that's trying to progress the mental health narrative. How did you deal with that, I guess, responsibility of being an ambassador for good mental health straight after the incident and playing footy when, you know, you're still working through all that, and then you've given that responsibility of the mental health ambassador? How did you deal with that journey?
You know, I think at the start, I really struggled to to be referenced with someone who's you know, had mental health and you know, the tag of suicide and all that stuff that comes with it. But after a while, I realized that look, it's really it's just I think people know, and I hope people know in our society how serious it is. It's it's one of the toughest things, you know, because we know a little bit about it, but then there's so much unknown about mental health, and I just always bring it back to Hendrix, and I realized, look, if I don't, I'm so grateful, you know, like I'm alive, you know, I'm still playing footy, I'm young, I've got so many opportunities ahead of me, and goals and dreams that I can still achieve. Imagine when Hendrix is old. You know, when he grows up, he's 18, he's going through his struggles, and his dad didn't do anything about. Well, he didn't come to me, and I didn't do anything about it. While I still have the opportunity. So that's the reason why. You know, it's a big responsibility, but then at the same time, I know there's gonna come a point where a friend, a family member, or you know, or Hendrix is gone through their struggles, and I because I've been able to do something about it, they can go and get the right help, and you know, it's not a stigma anymore. They just know what to do. Either they speak to me, or you know, go to their GP, book an appointment with a professional, and they just work through it, because it's how it should be. But unfortunately, it's not. But I think if I sat back and didn't do anything, and just focused on the fears in the back of my mind about how it'd be perceived, it's a big responsibility. Look, the reality is, like, I couldn't, I might not have been here, so it's it is what it is, and I'm proud and to put my name behind it now, and it's something I'm going to keep working as hard as I can for the rest of my life, to teach people, share my experiences with people about mental health, so that they know what to do, so that they're never in my position. But yeah,
It seems like you've gone to a really good point where you can speak about these things, and you know, you're telling people to speak up. What are some of the barriers did you experience that stopped you from speaking? Because I know you hadn't told your parents. Your parents found out after the bridge incident, and I guess if, let's say, Hendrix was in that position, was there something that you would have done differently, or how do you feel about the barriers, and how do you feel about the parenting style that can allow and provide an environment for someone to open up?
yeah, I think, you know, one of the barriers that didn't allow me to you know, tell my parents. I just thought, you know, culturally, mental health is really not spoken about.
Mm.
So you know, it might be different to a lot of people, but then at the same time, I just didn't know how my teammates would perceive me. Um, you know, until I admitted it, that, you know, to the club doctor, that I was struggling. It, I just perceived it as it's something weak, and you know, there was just so much negative connotation in my mind about it. But in reality, when I realized, when I went through it, and when it was gone too far, that the people around me were just there to support me. And if I just spoken to my teammates, told mum and dad, they would have just helped me. There was no judgment or anything, because in the end, when I went to the extremes, they were there for me, and they picked me up and they helped me heal. And so I think it's a fear in the back of our mind, which is really hard. I'm not going to lie to you. People find it hard to express what they're going through to the ones close to them. And what I found is, there's times that I've been out and, might be and meet some random people, and they don't know me at all. And they come speak to me about what they're going through, their struggles, and how they're afraid to tell people close to them. And I think it's one of those things where we got to utilize our support network. So I guess if I had my time again, I would have gone straight to my mum and dad, some of my teammates, told some people at the club, and my environment would have been set up for me to get better and just thrive. So
I think what you touched on regarding culturally as well is a big point. I know, I'm from Iraq and Syria, and so mental health isn't really a big topic over there. And so, like you said, unfortunately, it's perceived as a sign of weakness in those cultures. Do you feel an additional responsibility within the Sudanese community to try to change that narrative? Because I'm sure there's plenty of, people, regardless of what culture they are, that are going through it, and having someone that's from that same background and from that same culture can really provide strength for someone to open up.
The funny thing is, when I was writing the book, and I told my mum and dad, and they were so supportive. In particular, the mental health space. The amount of people that will be able to help through my experiences, and they spoke about when they spoke about my mental health in the book, and they said in particular, we don't want anyone else's child to go through what I went through. My brother works part-time in a mental health organization, and he runs I can't remember the name of it, but he runs online sessions where people talk about mental health, and how it is in my culture in particular. And they've got some parents on there a few times to just speak, and because you can just accept, oh look, it's not spoken about in our culture. That's fine. There are parts of every culture that should change, and I think one of those parts in my culture, the mental health area, is slowly changing, but it's getting more recognized. And I think because of what I went through, and when I was in hospital, there were so many people from the Sudanese community that came and saw me, and I guess they saw a real life example of what mental health can do. So people know, and we're going to keep trying working. Do appearances, go to schools, speak to young kids, but also at the same time using football as a vehicle, because attract the youth through sports, but then also talk about real life issues. So
it's amazing to see how you've turned the lowest of the lows into the future and trying to have a positive impact on people. You've talked about some of the good ways to deal with mental health, speaking to people that you love and spending time with your loved ones. I know prior to the bridge incident, you had a few attempts and you were using alcohol as a device to escape. Did you notice a difference between the reception people provided when you were honest with your poor mental health compared to the use of alcohol to deal with it? Because when we see, I think often we live in a very much a drinking culture. And so sometimes when people are going hard every weekend and having a sesh, it's kind of, it's the norm. But I think quite a proportion of people that do that, it's as a means of escapism. So did you find that there was a difference between how your alcoholism was received compared to the mental health struggles?
Yeah, and I think I was really scared to just, I guess lay myself bare and just be honest about the substance abuse in alcohol. But I sat down with my management, and when I spoke to my parents, and the book opportunity was there for quite a while, and I said, look, if I'm going to do this, there's no point just saying a few things here and there and just not being completely honest. And I was scared of how people were going to perceive it. That I had an alcohol abuse issue, but in reality, if I'm being honest with people and sharing everything that I went through, the reception that I got from it and the feedback was far outweighed what I thought, and just squashed all my fears about some of the honest truths in there. But alcohol is one of those things where it should be done. It should be done responsibly, enjoyed. Around company, not something that you should be doing alone. To escape from reality. But you're right. It is a big part. It is a big part of our society. And my mum and dad don't drink, so it was for them to find out that I had an alcohol abuse issue. But in the end, look, I was just being honest and truthful, and I think people respect that. So.
Pivoting away slightly, growing up, you've mentioned your Sudanese background. You spent the first 9 years in your life in Sudan. Tell me about that. Tell me about your upbringing there.
Look, man, it was pretty fun. I grew up. It was my family wasn't big at the time, but I had my cousins staying with us, and they'd go to school and then go back to the country. They're from the countryside, and they go back to the countryside on school holidays. My grandmother was living with us at the time. It was pretty hot, like it was it was dry heat. So I remember I would go to school really early. I think it was a 7 a.m. start or something like that, and finish at midday. And we're just always playing in the neighborhood. Grew up as a Catholic, so church. Mum and dad were heavily involved in the church. But like when we were leaving Sudan, towards the later parts, it was pretty tough. My dad went through a period where he was detained and he was in prison for 6 months. And then when we fled Sudan, things got really tough, and living in Egypt for 3 years. So went through a lot of hardship around those years. But when we got here, that was the best thing that happened for a long time, because I think for a period of 3 to 4 years, lived in an apartment, lived with other families. It was always chaos. There's just poverty and hardship. But when we came here, moved into a big house, backyard, and there was all sorts of things. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have come here. So
It's amazing what security can do for you, having that change from all the chaos in the latter years. Because as far as I remember, your family left after the second civil war. Is that correct, in Sudan? Yeah.
yeah,
And you spent those few years in Egypt. Was your dad there during your time in Egypt, or he met you back in
yeah,
Australia?
No, he wasn't there for, I think it was a period of 6 months. So um, tho- those 6 months were pretty tough. I was 9 at the time, and I had to work. Me and my brothers to provide for our family, because it just didn't sit right that my mum would go and work, and we did the best we could. 6 months, but as soon as my dad came and met us, and we were all finally reunited, he went and worked straight away, because he was a school teacher all his life. So found some work as a teacher. We all started going to school again. It was just, it's just one of those things when I reflect and look back, how much my parents have done for my siblings and I. Now I'm a parent. I get so much enjoyment seeing Hendrix, like, when it was Christmas last month, and he had so many presents, and I just I just remember when I was young, we barely ever celebrated a birthday or barely ever got gifts. We get clothes here and there, but it wasn't anything like that. And he's only two and a bit, so he's got no idea. But he was opening a present. He's like, "What's next? What's next?"
Your 10th present, Hendrix, calm down.
yeah. So, yeah.
What are some of the lessons, the way that your parents brought you up, that you've brought over to your own parenting style?
Yeah, I think it's I think, although in my culture, we're not very affectionate. I barely give my dad a hug or anything like that. But my parents, they love me dearly. They love all the kids. So they're very kind people. They treat people right. They work. They're extremely hardworking people. So the lessons that I've learned from them, that I've got to continuously work hard to provide, for my family. Although I'm not with my partner anymore, I think it's a responsibility for me to give everything that I can to Hendrix and his mum. And I think also, just being kind to people. If there's something that I'm not particularly happy with my friends in particular, then just be honest with them. I think is one thing that I've learned, and I've appreciated more since I've gone through my mental health struggles. And it's better to deal with uncomfortable situations than have uncomfortable conversations. Just don't let them don't put them away or put them behind you. Deal with uncomfortable conversations with people, and deal with your problems as soon as you can, because they just build up. So just work hard, be kind to people, and have uncomfortable conversations. So.
Definitely. I think the uncomfortable conversations is a big one, because I think from those conversations, it allows for growth. I think it allows for, I think when you're vulnerable, it allows for additional and deeper connection with the person that you're being vulnerable with. Because your parents were working so hard, and it seems like they were grinding, and coming from Sudan to Egypt to Australia, and you noted the lack of affection that the culture sometimes has, similar to our culture. It's very stoic, very work hard, this and that. Do you think that played into the reason why you were a bit hesitant to speak to your parents?
Yeah, I mean, I just, because when I spoke to Pete, that's the club
Mm.
doctor's name. He's a great man, Pete. And Pete looked after me he's almost a second father to me in a way, even through the really tough times when I was in hospital. Pete would finish work at the footy club, and he'd race over to the hospital, see how I'm going, or even when I was at home, he'd come over. Pete's an old man, so he'd come over and have a cup of tea with me, or just I could go into his office when I'm at the club and just have a conversation with him. And I think what held me back is yeah, maybe the lack of affection, but really because it was never spoken about.
Mm.
Look, if you're struggling with this, I mean, for struggling financially, there's other people in my life. I could go to my parents if I had other issues that I could speak to my parents about, but in particular the mental health one, because I mean, he spoke about vulnerability, and in my culture, we don't look people in the eye. So I just didn't know how would navigate my way through that conversation, because it's such an emotional one. I'd have to look my parents in the eye, potentially start crying, things like that. So for me, I just avoided them. I said, "Oh, this is not something I feel comfortable doing." So, but since we've had some very uncomfortable conversations, there's been a lot of tears. So it's just yeah, like, I mean, going forward, that's the environment I want to provide as a parent or as a friend. That it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be vulnerable, because that's just life. Life is hard. You know what I mean? It's not always celebrating birthdays or the good times. There's some really tough times, and you get through it with the people you love. So
I'm happy to hear that you're, breaking that cycle and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because that environment that Hendrix will grow up in will allow him to pass that on to his kids. And through the ambassador role that you're playing in the Sudanese community, that's going to really try and break that stigma. Speaking about the Sudanese community, I know in Egypt, that was your first incident, or I guess experience with racism. I was listening to an interview you had done, and I think it was your uncle just told you to let it slide at the time because it would cause a bit too much problems.
mhm.
How did you find dealing with that racism, and did that cause you to be a bit more uh, tentative when you're coming to Australia, where again the culture is completely different to Egypt, which was completely different to Sudan, and it's just it's a world of difference. Was that experience with racism, did that shape you to become a bit more hesitant to meet people and involve yourself within the community once you came to Australia?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's one of those things. I speak about it here and there with some friends, and it was the first time really in my life that growing up in Sudan, there are people as dark as me. There are people who are a little bit lighter, but when I came to Egypt, it's the first time I was 9, and I didn't know it was any different until it was I was told or mentioned to me, or the hate projected towards me. And that was because my 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 reaction is to do something about it, say something back or fight someone. So and I realized soon, I couldn't do that, especially the country we're living in. It just was not safe for people like me, or Sudanese people in particular. So when I came to Australia, yeah, I was a bit, I was a lot more reserved, just because of the experience that I went through in Egypt. And when I went to school, when I was going through school here, particularly year 7 and 8, and maybe year 9, it would occur here and there, but I remember particularly those year 7 and 8, I just reacted with violence. I got suspended a few times from school, and then I'd come home, and then my mum and dad were really angry with me, just because I chose violence instead of, I don't know, finding other means to deal with it, which was hard because I was just like, well, they're saying this without me, and it's hurtful. But then, I expected to go home and my parents to understand. They understood, but obviously they want me to, I guess, to deal with it better. So as I got older, even when it happened throughout, playing footy, it was it's disheartening, especially when I finally got drafted and started playing footy. In the back of my mind, it's like, oof, man, I've finally made it. I'm one of these people. But to get, I'm progressing, but to get reminded, look, you still don't look like us. Just that reminder, and it's just so sad, that's one thing some people resort to. But then at the same time, like, it's reflecting back. I'm so grateful for the opportunity of, playing footy, being able to provide for my family, do things a lot of kids, whether you're white, black, would dream of doing, and only a handful of people get to do it, and to do it for such a long time. I'm grateful for some of the experiences that I've had in my life. So hindsight's a great thing because it teaches you some great lessons. So. Mm.
And I do remember an incident back in 2011. Is that correct? When you were playing the VFL and someone had shouted a slur. How did you feel at that exact moment?
Oh, I was just filled with rage and anger, because I just ran over the boundary, and I just wanted to punch him. I just yeah, I wanted to fight him, and then slowly after that, like, just got overrode emotions, and I just started crying. And I remember our GM of football at the time was at the game, and it was a very back in those days, Port Melbourne is to play at Port Melbourne and win at Port Melbourne is very hostile, because it's just, like, it's very old Australian men, that have lived there for years, and they come there, support their local football club. Obviously, our demographics are changing, and some of those people are not keeping up with how society is moving. So yeah, I was pretty upset. But then the support that I received when I got home that night, it was, countless messages, phone calls, people checking in on me. So it was tough to deal with. It was heartbreaking that it would happen in a football game, but also at the same time, the support that I got was enormous. And I think the best thing that came out of it, because then the police was involved and they wanted to take it further, and we chose a different path, to put him through an education session about racial vilification, and what it means, what it means when his actions actually hurt other people. And what it could lead to. So I think that was pretty nice. A pretty nice ending to it. That things didn't go any further. He was able to be educated about cultural awareness and things like that. So
That's a good outcome. That's a good outcome from a very bad situation. I know.
Yeah.
I think as a Middle Eastern, there's a few instances of racism that I've received as well, and it can be quite disheartening because I'll proudly say, if I go overseas that I'm Australian and that I'm from Adelaide, and I think this is one of the best countries in the world. But then it can be a bit disheartening when the people that are from here don't accept you based on your skin color. So, and now these days with social media, there's no accountability for the remarks that someone can make. So they can jump on an anonymous Instagram user and post all these comments, and there's nothing that you can do about it, essentially. So how do you feel is the best way to manage that? If Hendrix, for example, comes to you and says that he's been, racially vilified for whatever reason, how would you go about telling him to be able to manage that in a way that doesn't involve punching? Although I tell you what, I've been in the same situation, my friend. I've been in the same situation.
I think like I've thought about this, like, because he's going to daycare now a few times a week, and Hendrix is not as dark as me, but he still looks different. So to be honest, when that when I cross that bridge, when it comes around, and it will, I guess just tell him, look, the best way to deal with it is acknowledge these things are going to happen. Deep down, I'll be pretty hurt because I would want to go over to the parents to the parents of the child, and because kids pick up things and they hear it somewhere. It's not something they magically come up with. Obviously, I'd love to. I'd support him as much as I can, but then there's an element of also being able to learn how to deal with things on your own. As hurtful as they are, I think I'll support Hendrix, but then at the same time, I'll just let him acknowledge it. Look, it's unfortunately it's just part of society that you have to deal with, and the best way to deal with it is don't react with violence. And it's funny I'm saying this. That's what my parents were telling me, but that's if you get the opportunity to teach the person in a way that doesn't involve screaming at each other or violence, I'll just be honest with them. Just tell them, look, man, look, what you're saying is actually really hurtful. I think when people really hear that, like the hurtful aspect, they take a step back and it's because no one wants to hurt someone else, and I think that's probably the best way to teach people. Even some of my friends we've had an argument or they've said something. I'm not afraid to just say, hey, look, man, like what you said, that really hurt my feelings. And the response is so much better than just I guess reacting with other different ways. So that's what I would tell Hendrix. If you feel comfortable with being vulnerable, just tell them what you said has really hurt my feelings, but it's gonna occur again. Unfortunately, you might have to be a bit more resilient and grow a thicker skin. So yeah, but hopefully by the time it's a bit older, some of these things are happening. So
I hope so as well. I think sometimes, like you were saying, people may not fully understand how a comment that they make can be so hurtful, and it can be such a loaded comment. So for them, it's a thing that doesn't mean much to them if they say it, but it's a loaded comment. It comes with all those connotations and it comes with all that baggage that they may not recognize. Moving forward, I wanted to speak about the media. I think if you look at your career as an AFL player, the media has played a huge part. And I think it started back from when you got drafted as the first Sudanese player and you got international acclaim and it was quite hyped up. That's a big thing to place on a young adult's shoulders and to place the whole, I guess, a whole nation on his shoulders, representing a whole nation. You didn't really have the opportunity or space to make a mistake because you're not just representing Majak, you're representing the Sudanese community. They placed that onto your shoulders. How did you feel with that pressure? Were you, I guess, ready for it? Was that something that you were happy to take on?
Not at all. And I think when I was finishing, or even year 11 or between year 11 and 12, and you know, school was end of school was nearing, and you know, I uttered the word that I'd love to be the first Sudanese to get drafted in the AFL. Just purely because to play football, I had no idea, you know, the attention that would come with it, and it was really hard those early days because essentially I was still, you know, first of all I was drafted in the rookie, so I wasn't even in the national draft, and the attention I was getting was bigger than some of the players who, you know, who drafted a lot higher than I was. So I was very anxious in public places, you know, a lot of social anxiety, people coming up to me, getting photos. You know, I didn't play my first game till my third or fourth season. So I had to deal with my teammates feeling uncomfortable about the attention I was getting, and them thinking that I was getting ahead of myself. But then also at the same time, you know, because I'm a reserved person by nature, you know, everything I did, you know, was magnified. So it was really hard to focus on footy and just develop as a player because there's so many distractions. You know, being doing all these appearances that I wasn't ready for, or being trying to be given these responsibilities, you know, in the multicultural space that I was completely not ready for. So it really hindered my football development. But the football club, you know, they try to help me as much as they can, but there's only so much they can do. You know, there were so many requests that were just knocked back. It's just like Brad Scott, my football coach at the time, he was really big. He's like, mate, just need to focus on playing football and being the best football player that he is. And we used to sit in his office a lot of the times, and I struggled with it. And you know, he said, you know, if you don't focus on footy, all those other stuff will not be around. So you just got to remember the reason all these other stuff are here, the attention, the profile, is because of football. If you don't get football right, those are the stuff don't really matter. So yeah, I mean, I did my best, you know, focused on footy. But also just speaking to mum and dad about it. There was a lady at the football club, her name was Sonia Hood, and our media manager, Heath O'Loughlin. They worked really closely with me, you know, trained me up and how to speak well in front of the camera, you know, how to answer some questions without exposing myself too much. So now I accept that. It's I'm proud of it. There've been some great things that have come out of the playing football and being the first one. There's other kids from my community that are, you know, that are thriving in the AFL. So, but I just didn't have the maturity to deal with that much attention at that age. So.
Is there a part of you that wished maybe there was a Sudanese player that had played before you, so you could focus purely on your football?
Yeah, I wish there was someone who came before me. So they can uh they they're not because being the first one, then people, I guess, even players within the football club or some of the staff, I mean, they never had an African be in the organization before. Um, so someone I really hope someone got drafted before me. So there's this cultural awareness, because some of the guys have never seen. It's not that they've never seen a black person before, but just really never had a black teammate playing AFL footy. So it was um, and then also at the same time from the community, because coming from a minority community, there's so many there's so many issues within our community, and there needs a voice to amplify some of the issues that we face. And I basically didn't have the knowledge to even speak about some of these issues. I was 18, 19, like I have no idea about some of these things. So yeah, I wish there was someone that came before me who would have, let the way, and and pave it so I can come in and just play footy. But unfortunately, I mean, fortunately, I look at it now. Fortunately, I'm glad I was the first one, and the boys can just go play footy now, and they're just looked at purely for their football talent, and they get drafted purely because of football. No other reasons, because like I said earlier, they should, minorities should get drafted to play football, but also need to understand the responsibility that comes with having a profile, because essentially, other kids look up to you, some of the other people look up to you, but yeah, get football right, and then other things will look after itself.
Mm. How important do you think cultural diversity is within sport? Because like you said, it allows for people from your community to be able to strive for something because they see someone that looks like them, that's, on the biggest stage.
Just having representation of yourself. You don't know what you could be. Like it's watching news. No one looks like me. So for kids to have a representation in sports, and and diversity in all aspects of society in the workplace is really important. So kids from our community can aspire to be something because there's a true representation of someone who looks like them. So that's really important. I think in the workplace, diversity has to be has to be included. We need a variety of people in the workplace, in sports, because essentially, like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna be here for a long, long time, and a lot of us are gonna be here for a long, long time. So we need to be included in all aspects of our society, and be given equal opportunities. But if we don't get opportunities, then kids can't see what they can be. So
I agree. I think you touched on before, dealing with the community behind you. I know throughout your playing career there was the issues with the Apex gangs in Melbourne, and you were, as an ambassador, you had that responsibility to deal with that issue. And then throughout your career you had those allegations against you, those awful allegations, and that played out in the public eye. And then now with the mental health, media's played such a big part. And they're always, I guess, they're relentless. So when you getting drafted, they were relentless with that. When it came to the the allegations, it was guilty until proven innocent, and everything was played in the public domain, which is, you know, an awful thing. That's something that is difficult to deal with, let alone in front of everyone. And then now with the mental health, people want to jump onto that train, and the media wants to try to promote that and things like that. What's your relationship with media?
Look, I think, you know, like Brad Scott, my old coach in North Melbourne, he used to say this. You know, we as an industry, we need the media because essentially they they pay our wages. But then at the same time, with me in particular, I just don't know. There was just an obsession about everything I did. The biggest thing till this day, I'm not. I feel you know there's a certain not hate, but there's a certain way I feel about the media because just the way they've been able to represent me at times. I've given up so much of my time to the media. I'm always polite and respectful to journalists, and I think they get away with so much. There's no responsibility from them at all. They can write whatever they want, whether it's true or not true. You know, whether they don't get all the facts right because they wanted to be the first one. You know, and that's one thing. You know, they should be held accountable. Even for my community, when all the Apex stuff was going on, I mean, there was, you know, it was such a small minority, but this was run on every newspaper, every news channel, and then, you know, fast track forward now, it's the damage that has done. You know, it's, I'm not going to say it's irreversible, but people can't get jobs from our community because of stuff like that. We can't get opportunities, you know, and also the flow-on effect of racism from that stuff. Like it's they need to be held accountable, but then also at the same time, look, I mean, I've dealt with some great media personalities throughout my whole life, but it's also, I guess, you know, where does the integrity lie? You know, it's a you just, I guess, yeah, you want to do your job, but do your job properly. You know, so that's how I feel about it. I mean, integrity is such a big is a hard thing to do, but I feel like if you've got that much responsibility to be able to make up people's minds, you know, change how people perceive a different a different part of society, then I think you need to do the right thing. And yeah, so
I think the media knows the pull of what they say and how much responsibility they have, and for them to use it so carelessly and be so relentless with the things that they do need to be held accountable. And I agree. Is that part of the reason why you released your book, to be able to change the narrative and be able to explain the story from your perspective? Because I can understand, like you were saying, when they speak about you and they write things, they misquote you, they take what they want and try to make it advertise it in a way that's going to get them the most clicks and things like that. So is that part of the reason why you released the book, to be able to take control of that narrative?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just wanted people to learn about my culture, my upbringing. That, you know, not all Sudanese people are violent people like the media is portrayed. So there's so many aspects in my book in terms of if you're a migrant coming here, how to navigate your way with some of the challenges. I guess the mental health area. I mean, try and help people get better in seeking professional help. But then also as a young father, because it's, you know, it's not easy raising a you know, being a first time father, and just, you know, there's so many aspects in my book, and I I want people to realize that we're not that different in reality. You know, like it's, you know, we might speak different, we might look different, but we all go through the same challenges. So um, yeah, and the book is something that's going to be here for a long time, and I think that's one of the greatest joys I got out of releasing the book. That, you know, Hendrix will read it, his kids will read it, my nieces and nephews, they'll read it. So it's going to be here for a long time, and yeah, it's one of those things. You know, although the way the media portrayed me over the years, they can't take that away. So yeah.
My final question, Majak, I appreciate your time. You've had a pretty amazing life, and you're just turning 31 soon. So you've definitely lived a very adventure-filled and eventful life. I guess my last question is, how would you like people to remember Majak Door?
Um, Look, I think I just want people to remember me as, you know, someone who's really optimistic. You know, gone through a lot of challenges, but, you know, was resilient. But then I think now someone who's made a big change in the mental health space. You know, football is great. I'd love to win be a premiership player and retire, but I think, you know, mental health is so much more bigger than football. So um, it's real life stuff, and I want people to remember me as someone who's made a big change in the mental health space. So
I think you're well on that way, Majak. The release of the book and the vulnerability that you showed today and you continue to show in your other interviews allows people to have the space to have those uncomfortable conversations that you said. Thank you very much for your time, mate. It's very, very appreciated.
no worries. Thanks, Ali. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. Have a good one.